There is no escaping death, so after Final Destination 2, we knew there had to be a third. Only what could be scarier than an airplane or a pile of logs? A roller coaster. In Final Destination 3, death comes for Wendy, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead in one of her first major film roles. But to get to her, death will have to face a more powerful foe first, one it's met only twice before: the ranking algorithm. My mission with this channel is simple: rank every movie ever made one at a time. I do this using a scientific approach. I recap the movie, and as I go, the rankometer will appear to add or subtract points whenever the movie does something good or bad. By the end, we'll have a precise score to see how this movie stacks up against all the rest. So, Death, now it's your turn. Are you paying attention to the signs? You having any visions? If so, then you know you're about to be ranked. Now, let's begin Final Destination 3. It's called The Devil's Flight, the roller coaster all the kids just have to ride. Today it's Wendy's turn, along with her boyfriend Jason, a few mutual friends, and some other students from McKinley High. As their time draws near, Wendy tries to ignore the paranoia bubbling inside her and instead focus on her job, taking photos for the yearbook. Maybe she should sit this one out, and she almost does, until Jason's pep talk about how she loves to be in control, so of course the roller coaster scares her. It means not having it, even if only for a couple of minutes. But she isn't just afraid, she also gets a feeling of déjà vu, all signs portending danger, and in case those signs aren't glaring enough, soon she gets the big one: the vision. Their roller coaster goes off the rails, killing them all. Some fight and some get lucky, holding on for an extra 30 seconds or so, but in the end, they all go, including Wendy, who dies last. Then she's back in her seat, but she knows that vision wasn't just her imagination, it was a premonition. She gets off the coaster and warns the others. Some listen and some follow her off of it. Some aren't allowed off, including her boyfriend Jason. Any who doubt her are quieted when the coaster derails, just as she warned. So let's see where we're at. Okay, not great. If you've watched any Final Destination movies before this one, it won't surprise you to hear these characters are pretty generic. There's little here to endear you to them or really tell you anything about them, other than not so subtle and cheesy dialogue implanted to set up a flimsy character arc. Wendy calls herself a control freak, and Jason calls out how her nerves are thanks to the lack of control you have when you ride a coaster. But Mary Elizabeth Winstead is good at her job, and her performance does elevate the character to some extent, though I'm not sure where her engineering knowledge comes from.
The hydraulics will rupture the tricycle lamps, please!
How does she know the hydraulics will rupture? Unless, when the accident happens, we get all these close-ups and different angles. Does she see that too? Do visions have multiple camera angles? That makes me wonder about dreams. Let me know in the comments, how many camera angles do your dreams typically have? Anyway, we're here for Carnage. We want to see people die, you know, in artful and creative ways. On that front, the roller coaster is a good choice. It is one of those things everyone has wondered and worried about. The build-up is great. The horror-themed ride allows the movie to use some real horror imagery, like the devil, appropriately voiced by Tony Todd.
May never return from devil's flight.
So there's great build-up to the accident, especially when they pull those restraints down, the feeling of being trapped. That feeling comes back, too, after Wendy's vision. She just wants to get off the coaster, but she's trapped. It's that awful feeling of needing someone else to let you out, so it's extra frustrating and effective when Jason gets trapped. As for the accident itself, not the best in the franchise. It's fairly repetitive, mostly just a lot of pieces, parts, and people flying off the rails. It's especially disappointing compared to the second movie's death scene, which offered a lot more variety. At least Final Destination hasn't gone 3D yet. That's still one movie away, thankfully. In the wake of all that death, Wendy tries to move on, but it does not leave her. A malevolent presence, sometimes just a feeling, sometimes something more, like the candles that spontaneously blow out at her friend's memorial display. Making it even harder to move on is her late boyfriend's best friend, Kevin. He has an idea what's going on. He read about Flight 180, about Alex Browning's vision, and about how death came back for all those who cheated it. Wendy doesn't believe any of it, until later that evening. Her sister asks to borrow the camera, so she plugs it in to give it some charge. While she's at it, Wendy has a look at some of the photos from that night when her friends died. That's when she notices something odd about Ashley and Ashlyn's photo. They look overexposed, like someone turned up the heat. They said they'd be going to the tanning salon tonight before graduation. Between that photo and that dark feeling bubbling up again, Wendy gets the idea it's a warning. She tries to call and warn the girls, but it's no use. Through a series of unlucky coincidences arranged by death itself, Ashley and Ashlyn are trapped in those tanning beds and burned alive. This is a pretty effective death scene. There's a real sense of claustrophobia in those tanning beds, and it's pretty obvious how it's going to go. It's just unclear how and when they'll burn. That allows for some buildup, with the temperature literally slowly rising. And when it happens, they show just enough burning and blistering for you to feel the pain. Though this movie tries to change things up with a new mechanism for signs. They're in the photos now, and that's less effective than the paranoia offered in the first couple of movies. In previous films, signs could appear anywhere, so you were constantly on the lookout. Anything could be a symbol of doom. The movies never took full advantage of that, but this one hardly tries, because instead of signs all around you, this one mainly sequesters them to those photos. All they have to do is look at them and look for clues, instead of constantly paying attention to their surroundings. It also seems to depend on Wendy being an apparently terrible photographer, and it raises questions. Who is putting these signs in the photos? Let's say there's some good force counteracting death that gives people visions and signs to help them fight it. These photos were taken before the roller coaster incident, meaning they were taken before death failed to kill Wendy and her friends. Yet somehow, this good force put signs in the photos before it gave Wendy a vision, meaning it knows not only that death will try to kill her via roller coaster, but also how it will try to kill them if the roller coaster plot is foiled. And that's hard to believe. I doubt death has thought that far ahead, because in its cosmic mind, they were all destined to die on the coaster. Also, these deaths don't hit too hard since we don't really care about any of the characters. Not only are they mostly bland and generic, but it stands out even more when the movie tries for drama, but just comes off as cheesy melodrama filled with clunky dialogue. Like Wendy telling her sister, "I have such guilt." A sister with whom she has zero chemistry. Other than the movie reminding us they are sisters, there's nothing in their interaction to convince you that it's true. Julie is there as a plot device to be in peril later. In the meantime, she's there to demand back her bracelet, so we remember Julie likes that bracelet. It'll matter later. And she wants to borrow the camera. That's important too, because it gets Wendy to look at the camera, at those photos. She just wants Wendy's devices. She's a plot device who wants her sister's devices. At Ashley and Ashlyn's funeral, Wendy confesses to Kevin that she is now a believer, and the answers are in the photos. It seems photos sometimes provide clues to how a person will die. Of course, there was Ashley and Ashlyn's overexposed picture, but going back further, there was also Abraham Lincoln's last known photo. The photographic plate broke, causing a line that can't be removed, exactly where he was shot. Or the photo of the Twin Towers, where a phantom shadow of a plane can be seen. And finally, there's a photo of the Route 23 pileup that occurred 1 year to the day after Flight 180, where smoke obscures a road sign, leaving only the number 180. Kevin is skeptical. Why? He's the one who told her about Flight 180, and he was obviously right considering Ashley and Ashlyn's deaths. The skepticism in these movies rarely feels properly aligned, and pushes these movies into dumb characters doing stupid things to drive the plot forward territory, so familiar to horror movies. Anyway, Wendy is hungry because this movie needs them to go to the drive-thru. There, they think about who is next. Frankie was behind Ashley and Ashlyn on the coaster, so it should be his turn. They look at the photo of him on a rope ladder. Could that be the clue? No time to wonder as an out-of-control truck hurtles toward them. They escape the car before it's crushed, and its engine is launched out of the hood into the convertible ahead of it. That's how this poor driver's head ends up in pieces, shredded by the engine's fan. And that poor driver turns out to be Frankie. It seems they looked at the wrong photo. They should have looked at this one, the one taken from below Stacy's skirt. I mean, no one should look at this photo, it's wrong, but if they had looked at it, they would have seen Frankie in the corner with his head by a fan. Pretty good death scene that changes things up. Usually we're with the potential victim until they or someone else nearby dies. But this time, we didn't even know Frankie was here until it's revealed after his head gets put through a makeshift blender. It's doubly surprising since it's a pretty heavy helping of gore, one area where the franchise has definitely expanded since the original. There's also creativity in this mechanism of death. An engine popping out of the hood and into his head. Not something I've thought of before. Weird, I know. Back to the photos. Yes, they aren't the most fun way to convey signs, but there is some humor in the Lincoln reveal. The contrast of a historical figure with this modern, absurd horror franchise is kind of automatically funny. Also, wow at the Twin Towers photo, pretty audacious choice. Also odd is the idea that there literally was no plane casting that shadow, like those phantom bus or train reflections in the first movie. If so, how did Wendy find that photo, and how has nobody else noticed it? Speaking of the original, one of the best parts of that movie was the tone. It created a truly paranoid sense of mood. This movie sometimes approaches that but often fails, especially when it tries to sell it through dialogue.
This fear is more than just being scared. It's like a presence, like a living thing.
You think it's Jay?
No, I know it's not. His presence is the opposite of how Jay made me feel.
This presence is the opposite of how Jay made me feel. Cue the wind blowing and the trees rustling. Would have been a lot more effective without the cheesy dialogue. Just have the wind blow and some ominous score. Next on Death's list should be Lewis. The photo has him at the strength tester right after he swung the mallet and the weight shot up. The photo makes it look like that weight is about to crush his head. They find him at the weight room to warn him, but he doesn't want to hear a word of their warnings. Instead, he keeps at it. Wendy looks at the photo again. A bear, swords, like the bear statue in the weight room and the swords hanging on the wall. In his death, they all play a role. A particularly vigorous weightlifter gets a little too excited and knocks a claw off that bear into one guy's eye, who drops his weight, knocking those swords off the wall, cutting the cords of Lewis's weight machine, so the next time he lifts it, a couple of weights fall and crush his skull. This one was okay. There are some red herrings, but come on, water on a plug is starting to get old. And there is some good old-fashioned Rube Goldberg mechanics, with one thing causing another until BAM! Anyway, we don't really care who lives or dies, so at this point, why not just have a good time? This scene really cuts loose. This gym is ridiculous. Actually, it's pretty motivating. Yeah, it makes me want to lift something and grunt, except for the part where he gets his head crushed. Though, yeah, the characters, they are a problem because, as always, Final Destination's struggle is this. What do we do between death scenes? There are really only two options: investigation into the design and rules of death, or character work. The series is usually best when it focuses on the former, and it struggles with the latter, which is where 3 spends most of its time. The closest thing we get to an arc is Kevin, who is a class clown type at the start of the movie, but slowly transforms into someone more dependable as the movie goes on. Though he doesn't slowly transform, he changes immediately after the accident. And there's this part where he confesses to Wendy that You know, he was gonna ask his girlfriend to marry him. Wendy doesn't say anything, but we saw earlier in the movie that his girlfriend, before dying, told Wendy she was actually planning to break up with Kevin. So sad. We don't care, and when the movie tries to make us care, it only emphasizes how little we care, and how paper-thin the characters really are. Who is next? That would be boyfriend and girlfriend Ian and Erin, currently working their jobs at a hardware store, full of pointy objects. Wendy and Kevin arrive with the bad news. You're both gonna die! Like Lewis, they don't want to believe it. At the last moment, Wendy notices sharp planks of wood in Ian and Erin's photo. That is the culprit. Through a series of unfortunate events, a rogue forklift drives into a shelf, knocking over a bunch of sharp planks. Wendy pushes Ian out of the way just in time. Unfortunately, one of those planks is flung through the air into a bag of sawdust, which gets in Erin's eyes. She stumbles into a nail gun, sending 12 nails through her skull. Her sign was in the photo too, Ian pointing a fake gun in her direction. Once again, death is victorious, but not entirely. They did intervene on Ian's behalf. He was saved. So, death skipped to Erin. You're gonna die! No, I'm not! Oh no, I died. Gotta say, that setup is getting really old. By this point, the movie really starts to feel repetitive. We gotta warn them, they're gonna die. Oh no, they died! Kevin and Wendy comfort each other. Okay, let's warn the next one. Oh no, they died! They comfort each other. Okay, for real this time. Let's go warn them. And with each death, the character's skepticism is less and less rational, which makes them seem dumber each time, which makes you care even less whether they live or die. Not to mention Kevin and Wendy wandering into the most dangerous place in the world. This hardware store is filled with so many things that can kill you, and they take zero precautions. Alex would be appalled.
But I got this cabin rigged to beat you now!
But pretty good death. This one has a lot of build-up. With so many things going wrong, it's hard to tell what'll finally do them in. The death itself is also another one where you can feel the pain on their behalf. It isn't quick like Lewis or Frankie, but it's a tad slower because the first nail didn't kill her, and then there were 11 more. It's the kind of death that lingers and leaves behind a grotesque image that's hard to forget, unless it's blurred, so you're welcome. Or become a member or patron for the uncensored version. Just don't say I didn't warn you. Also, nice that the signs helped for once. Noticing the planks gave Wendy the split second she needed to react and save Ian. It's nice when they don't lose every time. It helps to make sure in the next scene there is a genuine question of whether they'll succeed or not. With Wendy's friends dropping like flies, death is almost done with its cleanup act. Only Wendy and Kevin remain. Or so Wendy thinks, until she takes a closer look at the photos and notices her grandma's charm bracelet, the one her sister likes to wear. It turns out her sister Julie was on the Devil's Flight that night too. She's next. Wendy calls Kevin, who is working security at the McKinley Tricentennial. That's where Julie would be. He tries to warn her, but like the others, she doesn't listen. Until a horse is spooked by fireworks, pulls out its T-post and makes a run for it. That rope gets wrapped around Julie's neck, and she's almost dragged into the spikes of a harrow, until Kevin cuts the rope. She's saved, except her friend Perry was sitting next to her. The horse is spooked again, this time yanking out a flagpole and launching it through Julie's friend. Next should be Kevin. Wendy thinks of his photo, the flash in his face, like a firework or explosion. That horse kicks him onto the food table, launching a skewer into the propane line. It explodes in his face, mimicking that photo, except Julie pulls him back just in time. Now he's been skipped too. Finally, Wendy's turn. In her picture, she wore a McKinley shirt, the name of their school, which also happens to be Ian's last name. He isn't happy his girlfriend died and blames Wendy for it. Now he's come for revenge, except he isn't the culprit. It's some rogue fireworks, which she notices just in time. She, Kevin, and Julie dodge them and they miss Ian, but with her saved, Death has no choice but to start over with anyone it missed. That means Ian is up again. Those fireworks that missed him did hit a cherry picker, which now falls and crushes him to death. For a movie that hasn't done the best job setting up a mood, this sequence actually does a good job. It does it in the easiest way, by using a song that does a lot of the work for you, but the song they chose somehow works so well. The Letterman's cover of Turn Around, Look at Me. There is someone walking behind you. That, combined with the wolf on the road, does give this feeling of finality that Wendy is heading to her ultimate fate. The sequence is frustrating though, starting with Julie as yet another skeptical character. Hey, you're in danger. No, I'm not. Shut up. So sick of this interaction, and how can Julie possibly be skeptical at this point? Almost every survivor has died. Clearly something fishy is going on. If she doesn't believe in death as a cosmic force, at minimum there's apparently a serial killer targeting Devil's Flight survivors. Is the idea that Julie hasn't heard about the deaths because, well, they aren't her friends, they're her sister's friends? Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I think word would get around, or at minimum, Julie would be curious. Wendy, where are you off to? A funeral? Isn't that like the 5th one this week? Well, I'm sure glad I have no connection to all these people dying. This is also where the character development really becomes a problem. You honestly forget at a certain point Wendy even has a sister, and if you remember, the movie hardly makes you believe it. There's no evidence of a shared past, no inside jokes, no chemistry, and no scenes together other than the bare minimum needed for plot progression. Wendy, plug in that camera. Wendy, that's my bracelet. Don't forget, if you ever see it on someone's arm in a picture, it's probably my arm because it's my bracelet. If we don't feel invested in these characters, we hardly care about their deaths, and hardly feel any tension in their struggle. Slapping the label sister on one of the characters isn't gonna automatically make us care more, like, wait, sister? Okay, this is a character that actually matters. And question, how much of a procrastinator are you? What if your life was on the line? Let's say you had photos which gave clues as to what would kill you, so maybe you could avoid it. Would you look at these photos or just kind of glance at them? Maybe you'll get to them later. It isn't at all believable that Wendy and Kevin would have waited until now to finally look at their photos. It's also pretty ridiculous that Wendy didn't notice that bracelet on her sister's arm until now. How do you have these photos and not go over them with a fine-tooth comb? Once again, Alex would be ashamed. He had to figure everything out himself. He didn't have little pictures he could look at with all the answers. But when Kevin finally does hear about his picture and assumes it means a firework will blow up in his face and he gets annoyed at Ben Franklin,
Fuck you, Ben Franklin.
that was funny. As for the actual death, a flagpole impaling someone isn't too creative, especially compared to previous deaths in the movie, but this one is more about suspense. Can they save Julie in time? Despite the lack of real stakes, since these characters are barely characters, the scene does garner a little tension by drawing things out. Julie's near death takes a few steps. Scare the horse, pull out the T-post, drag her by the neck. It all buys enough time for us to wonder if she's going to make it or not. And it ends with a surprise twist. We saved her, but too late for her friend. But that still leaves Wendy herself. In a movie that struggled with character development, it's nice to see one of the characters go through a change of some kind. McKinley is losing his mind and will potentially be the end of Wendy, though it seems like they might have misinterpreted the signs. McKinley in the photo was likely referring to the McKinley Tricentennial itself, since Wendy is almost taken out by fireworks from the event. It's also fun to see how unhinged Ian gets when the fireworks miss him, like that scene in Shanghai Noon where all the bullets miss Owen Wilson.
I am invincible.
Roar! Invincible!
The death also had an element of surprise. The fireworks missed. Or were they not aiming for him? They were aiming for the cherry picker. Ow. Also, love that arm twitch. 5 months after cheating Death, Wendy has finally moved on. But Death hasn't, and it has chosen today to strike. She gets a bad feeling, hears a familiar song, then bumps into her sister. What is she doing here? And wait, Kevin is here too? What a coincidence. The subway derails and they all die. But this was just another vision. Wendy is still alive, except she's woken up only seconds before the derailment. They have little time to act. Kevin quickly pulls the emergency stop. Cut to black and the sounds of screeching metal. Every Final Destination movie needs to end on a gotcha. This one is a bit lacking because if you've seen any other Final Destination movie, there is no gotcha, since all these characters did was intervene a few times. We all know that just means death, skipping to the end, then starting back over again. But it does eke out some points, setting a mood, bringing back this movie's death song, with a subway performer singing "Turn Around, Look at Me." Then all the coincidences, which in these movies always portend doom. Also, a nice surprise that all the carnage turns out to be a second vision, not something you expect this late into the movie. You might be wondering, by the way, did Wendy, Julie, and Kevin survive? It's left ambiguous, but the movie's producer, Craig Perry, seems to think they are most definitely dead. Quote, "In my mind, they are dead. And not just dead, but pulverized." Isn't that nice? So, here's the final score, making this the worst of the 3 we've ranked so far. But hey, The Final Destination is up next, and that movie is in 3D. So surely it'll be an improvement, right? Right?